There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up.
Pop quiz. You have a hair trigger aimed at your head. What do you do? What do you do?
Speed.
Hey there guys, I just want you to know that in this video, there's a massive lie that will be revealed before the end, but if you don't like being led astray, hoodwinked, or bamboozled, I suggest you leave. Okay, video starts now. So, my favorite co-op sci-fi military shooter, Helldivers 2, recently released a car, and it reminds me so much of the car from my favorite co-op sci-fi military shooter, Halo. They're very similar visually, a car with a big stand-up machine gun on the back, and any mid-20-something like myself who sees the FRV will be reminded of the Warthog. And I'm sure that's intentional. Helldivers is in the very privileged position of being a spoof of Halo that has eclipsed Halo in popularity, and can just sort of be Halo if they want. So today, I want to talk about these two bad bitches, and eventually pit them against each other. And I will definitely give a straight answer as to which is better. That is 100% something that I'm interested in doing. Okay, so let's start by running down every stat that I could think of, and we can compare directly. For testing purposes, I want to focus on PvE content, so no multiplayer from Halo. I just want to make sure that the comparisons are as apples to apples as they get.
Speed.
The fast recon vehicle from Helldivers appears to have a significantly higher top speed than the Warthog, so I'll give this round to the FRV. But it's worth noting, Halo and Helldivers have very different map design. Halo's maps are much more smooth and free of random small jagged rocks that will flip you over. And in the FRV, once you're flipped, you're cooked. Both metaphorically, as in there's no way to flip back, and literally, your car will catch on fire. So even if the FRV is a lot faster on paper, you're rarely going to be making full use of that high top speed. Which brings us to handling, which was the only easy category for me to write up. Hog wins. The FRV has tank controls, which means left and right are relative to the direction of the car, whereas in Halo, left, right, and forward are determined by camera angle, which means you can steer with the camera, and by necessity, this means the game does a lot of the steering work for you. Also, the FRV has a manual transmission, so if you want to go up a hill fast, you need to put it in first gear, and actually, I end up putting it in first gear and second gear a lot, just because limiting the max speed is really useful when you're trying to not get flipped over. Whereas the Warthog has the advanced future tech of an automatic gear shift. So it's really difficult and fuzzy to rate durability in two games with such vastly different baddies. But the analogy that I found a little useful is that the FRV takes 2 to 3 tank shots to blow up, where the Warthog only needs 1. The FRV can definitely take more direct punishment before it straight up dies, but that said, I think this round still has to go to the Hog, because it's able to be flipped back upright and doesn't feature poppable tires like the FRV, which can make you abandon car long before it's taken lethal damage. Honestly, most of my FRV losses have been because it flipped over or because it didn't have enough tires left to continue. And actually, they handle the tire thing in a really cool way, where the consequences of a popped tire change based on the environment. Losing a tire on a temperate mat is not like a huge deal. It loses a little speed and it has worse handling, but sometimes I'll keep driving with no tires. But then losing a single tire on a map covered in snow, or sand, or God help you, ice, it's debilitating. It's really cool that Arrowhead thought to model a thing like that. So even if the FRV has more hit points per se, the Warthog is much more sturdy when it comes to actually driving it around.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational
Four-door sedan.
Fire at will, Commander.
Similar to durability, the Warthog and FRV have very similar killing power. But I think the Warthog wins on the little details Arrowhead uses to balance the FRV. Both vehicles are capable of killing a tank really quickly if you have good positioning, but the FRV has limited ammo, and you need to reload the magazines. So I think the Warthog with its Olive Garden unlimited breadsticks really edges this one out. Also worth noting in my testing, the most consistent thing the FRV can splatter is your teammates. For some reason, the collisions feel really inconsistent and bad against the bad guys, and are much more consistent against your team. The problem with the FRV is that, true to life, running people over with your car is not very fun. Versus the Warthog, where you can feel the individual crunching bones of every elite you hit. Also, this is a good time to mention that I feel like Halo was designed much more car-forward than Helldivers. In Halo, the baddies can recognize the Warthog, they'll try to stick it with grenades, and often they try to dive out of the way when you drive at them. And in some Halos, the elites can even man the turret and use it against you. It's all really cool. This is a pretty big mark in the Hog's favor when you compare it to Helldivers, where I'm pretty convinced that the AI can't actually recognize the car beyond it being the player, but really fast. You know, I've always known this song was called Safety Dance, but for some reason I always thought the chorus was saying Save the Dance. Like, they keep saying we can dance if we want to, which made me think that their right to dance was in jeopardy, therefore needing to save it. But no, I guess they really are just saying. So, crew safety is a weird one. The FRV features doors that can be shot off, and until those doors are gone, the passengers are protected by those doors from gunfire. So, I was gonna give it to the FRV, except in Halo, your character is wearing power armor, and like, it doesn't matter what you run into, Chief is just gonna hang in there, baby. But in Helldivers, you're just a dude with inertia, who, if you're leaning out of the car window, or if you're in the gunner's seat, will get launched at car speed if you crash into something. Halo also has a blast shield for its gun, which actually does more work than you might think. So the FRV has safer passengers from gunfire, but the Hog doesn't eject them, and has a safer gunner, so I think this one's a draw. Well, that's that. 3 wins for the Warthog out of 5.
I guess you guys better respect your elders. The Warthog is and always will be the best video game vehicle of all time. Don't look at the runtime. The Warthog's amazing, and that's why they've made so many real-life Warthogs. Except,
It wasn't a very fair comparison, was it? I imagine some of you might have already said that to your screen. For most of these, I was making qualifications like, yeah, they're similar, but Helldivers is more complicated and has a lot more ways for things to go wrong while you're driving. And like, what does it even mean for a vehicle to be better anyway? Like, yeah, my dad, a Warthog, can beat up your dad, the FRV, in a fist fight. But really, if it's a dad measuring contest, shouldn't we be comparing other stuff too? Like piano recitals attended or annual income? What I'm trying to say is that maybe instead of measuring which vehicle is better in combat, we should be measuring which is more impactful on your gameplay in the context of the game's systems and objectives. When I'm playing Halo campaign, I can't help but feel like Halo missions are usually broken up into 2 categories. Sections where you are expected to be in a vehicle, and the rest of the game. As a linear shooter, this makes a lot of sense. The Warthog's really fast, so sections designed for Warthogs are huge. Really awkward to cross if you want to try it without a vehicle, but then inevitably, the vehicle section screeches to a halt, and they physically block you from bringing your vehicle any further. And it's kind of rare that a Halo mission feels like vehicles are an option rather than a requirement or just Sir not appearing in this level. You either need one or you don't. I think the best vehicle maps in Halo are the ones that are more open world and the missions where you are expecting to get in the car, park it, and then get back in later. It makes it feel more like the Warthog is fulfilling a transport role in a larger operation rather than just being a single contained episode. That said, the Warthog runs from the end of Halo 1 and 3 are some of my favorite video game memories of all time. Real core memory shit. Compare this to Helldivers, where the game is more of a sandbox, and you have these massive maps where you have a lot of freedom in when, where, and if you go somewhere. These maps were designed before the game had a car, so it's all designed to be playable and fun without a car, but they're large and open enough that the ability to go somewhere really fast is really nice. And frankly, it's not just nice, it's game-breaking. You see, Helldivers isn't just a shooter, It's a racing game, baby. You're racing the clock in every mission, and with how big the maps are and how many enemies of managed democracy you'll be fighting, 40 minutes is often not enough time to do everything on the map. So as one could imagine, a vehicle that allows you to do all that faster is extremely good. And honestly, reducing travel time isn't even the strongest thing about the FRV. The actual strongest thing it can do is allow you to simply leave. Before, when the ground started shaking and the soil started speaking arthropod, me and me hearties would either need to dig in our heels and spend precious time fighting another swarm, and sometimes a second swarm would spawn before you dealt with the first one, and you get stuck in a never-ending death spiral of swarms. Or, if you want to avoid that, you could hobble away like three-legged rats fleeing a sinking ship. The bugs in Helldivers are fast. Like, fast enough that depending on how heavy your armor is, running away can range from pretty ineffective to impossible. The whole time you're running, you're not finishing your objective, and often you're not even moving towards the objective, you're just running whatever direction isn't covered in bugs. The car transforms routing into repositioning. Not only is it fast enough to let you easily disengage from an enemy swarm, but it also allows you to bring your team with you instead of scattering. You stay grouped up, which has tons of its own advantages. Also, when you're not fighting bugs, the armor and speed still allow you to safely flee settings where the bots in Illuminate might have just gunned you down mid-retreat, even though I was zigzagging. It keeps your friends close, and your enemies so far, they're out of sight and shit out of luck. So really, the thing about the fast recon vehicle, it's not just about how fast you're driving, it's about where you're driving to, who you're driving with, and who you're driving away from. All of this is to say, the fast recon vehicle is extremely strong inside of the kind of game Helldivers is. And when compared to Halo, where you're usually under no time constraint and you usually need to kill all the baddies, it becomes clear there is no comparison. The FRV is stronger from a mission completion perspective. So there you have it, boomers. The Warthog is dead, and the FRV skippity-riz killed it. AARP is waiting for you. And really, it only makes sense the Warthog would get topped eventually, since it came out in 2001. It's pushing 24. The Warthog is old enough to know what it's like to wake up in the middle of the night and just feel lonely, even though there's someone laying right next to you. So, thankfully, the Warthog can finally rest, while the FRV takes us into the future of sci-fi shooter cars. Except, that take kinda sucks too. Something that struck me when I was testing the two is that the Warthog actually feels like it was designed to be played with. With the FRV, you have to drive really carefully, knowing full well that any fuck-up means no more car. Or you'll have a car with a missing tire. Like, God forbid a girl have fun. God forbid a video game car feels smooth, responsive, and intuitive to drive. And that you'd be able to drive it around without being worried it will suddenly fall apart on you. When I was testing the Warthog for this video, it didn't matter which Halo game it was, though admittedly CE was my least favorite. I found myself getting distracted just driving the hog around the map. The Warthog just feels really good to drive. The controls feel really natural on controller, and there's this weightiness to it that I'm having a hard time articulating. And in missions, I was consistently experiencing an unmitigated joy of battle in the Warthog that the FRV only sometimes delivers. I feel like these cars are extremely emblematic of the games they come from. Helldivers are fragile and clumsy, and so is the FRV. Their legs break, and the FRV can lose tires. Helldivers can be extremely effective when they're cautious and strategically minded, and so can the FRV. And in Halo, Chief can take a lot more of a beating. His mechanics are more forgiving, and the same goes for the Warthog. He's more consistent, and his gameplay is more about shooting his gun well and using his mobility to dodge enemy fire. And the same principle goes for the Warthog, where it's less about passing a driver's test from hell, and more about evading enemy fire and shooting the turret effectively. It feels kinda dumb to say out loud, but if you like playing Halo, the Warthog is perfect for Halo. And if you like playing Helldivers, the FRV is perfect for Helldivers. This was never a dichotomy. I think they're both really great. And I think the answer of the question, which is better, could never be more interesting than the process of trying to answer it. This whole which one is better thing was just a framing device because I just really wanted to talk about these two video game cars. Like, I really like both of them, and I think there's a lot to say about them. And the early draft of this video, where I just rambled about them, it felt like it was really lacking structure. If this video does well, I think I might use this format again, with another pair of video game things. And you know, there's something about multiplayer vehicles in video games that I just can't get enough of, and I'm gonna ramble about that. Video's main premise is over, so if you want to leave, there's the door. Like and subscribe now, if you'd like, but I'd love it if you joined me on the scenic route for just a moment. So, what makes video game vehicles so fun? Is it variety? For a vehicle to let multiple people ride, it kind of demands that there be multiple types of seat, at least a driver and a passenger, and sometimes a gunner or even a spotter if your game is like really cool. In this way, one vehicle can effectively become several, and sometimes it's just really nice to let someone else drive. Maybe it's the way they demand teamwork. A lot of multi-person vehicles require you to actively talk to your boys, calling out targets or pointing out where to go. If your game has a spotter, you're guaranteed to have a lot of really cool chatter, but you know, variety and cooperation are great. But I think what really makes them so special is the shared experience. Once you and the lads get in, you're not just glued to the seats, you're glued to each other. A lot of times when you play a co-op game with your bosom buddies, you'll have exchanges like, "Oh, dude, you see that? No, I didn't. What happened? Oh, I just did like a really cool thing. Ah, cool, dude." And like, of course me boyos want to hear about the cool thing I just did, but it's never really as satisfying as when they saw it with their own eyes. This problem is vastly alleviated when your lads are locked into physical space with you, so chances are, if you do something sick, your lads are much more likely to witness you. But more than just physically moving your perception closer together, shared vehicles also combine your game states. The vehicle's health becomes everybody's health, and when the vehicles get really damaged, everybody feels that ratcheting tension. When the vehicles die, you all feel that pain in unison. When the vehicle is doing great, everybody's doing great. It's not just a vehicle for you, or even for us. It's a vehicle for narrative, baby. A disproportionate number of my favorite video game memories with me mateys center around a shared vehicle. These shared stories that can emerge because of that vehicle. And I'd reckon that's true for a lot of you guys too. Stay bumpin'. See you later, Space Cowboy. Auf Wiedersehen. But gun to my head, it has to be the Warthog, and only 90s kids will ever understand. Bye.